I have been spending as much free time as I have on the 1619 project. And I'm going to draw just a few paragraphs from this book-length work. I think all of you know that in August of 2019, the New York Times launched an extraordinary historical and journalistic project under the leadership of Nicole Hannah-Jones to really identify the arrival of the first enslaved peoples on the shores of Virginia in August of 1619 as the true founding of America in its darkest and saddest sense. This project is an extraordinary work of history and journalism, but it has been vilified by the forces of white supremacy to suppress the history and the teachings in the 1619 project. Republican state legislatures are passing laws to ban the teaching of the 1619 project in schools. It is one of the most critical attacks on the teaching of clear American history. Let me just read a few paragraphs from Nicole Hannah-Jones's preface. I cannot urge every one of you more strongly to purchase the book-length work. It's an expanded version that was of what was published in the New York Times 3 years ago. At one point in her preface, she writes, "The story of Black America cannot be disentangled from the story of America, and our attempts to do so have forced us to tell ourselves a tale full of absences, evasions, and lies, one that fails to satisfactorily explain the society we live in and leaves us unable to become the society we want to be. The typical origin story of the United States begins with scrappy colonists inspired by noble ideals, declaring independence and launching the American Revolution. In this version, quote, the American Revolution is a timeless story of the defense of freedom and the rights of all mankind, unquote, write the editors of the anthology Remembering the Revolution, Memory, History, and Nation Building from Independence to the Civil War. For centuries, this story has worked as a powerful source of national cohesion for white Americans. Quote, today's Americans most often recall tales of a revolution led by a group of demigods who towered above their fellow colonists, led them into a war against tyranny, and established a democratic nation dedicated to the proposition that all men are endowed by their creator with equal rights. The editors of that anthology continue. Quote, above all, it is a story of the founding of a nation. Returning to Hannah-Jones's preface, many historians have been seduced by the desire to manage the story of our founding, protecting our identity as an exceptional, fundamentally just nation, the freest in the history of the world. Quote, our memory of the past is often managed and manipulated, according to historian Gary B. Nash. The revolutionary period remains a sacred relic. Even for many white liberal historians, the revolution is the last thing that people let go of, says Woody Holton, a scholar whose work centers on the role of slavery in the American Revolution. But for Black Americans, the traditional origin story has never rung true. Black Americans understand that we have been taught the history of a country that does not exist. What I have heard again and again since the original project was published is that the 1619 project, for many people, finally made America make sense. As the Howard University historian Ana Lucia Arjo writes in Slavery in the Age of Memory, quote, despite its ambitions of objectivity, public history is molded by the perspectives of the most powerful members of society. And in the United States, public history has often been racialized, gendered, and interwoven in the fabric of white supremacy. Yet it still is posed as objective. History is the fruit of power, writes Michael Doff Trullo, in Silencing the Past, Power and the Production of History. And, quote, the ultimate mark of power is its invisibility, the ultimate challenge, the exposition of its roots. In exposing our nation's troubled roots, the 1619 Project challenges us to think about a country whose exceptionalism we treat as the unquestioned truth. It asks us to consider who sets and shapes our shared national memory and what and who gets left out. As Pulitzer Prize-winning historian David W. Blight writes, in Race and Reunion, the Civil War in American Memory, our nation's glorious remembrance is all but overwhelmed by an even more glorious forgetting. Not all Americans have been willing to forget. Black Americans, because of our particular experience in this land, because we have borne the brunt of this forgetting, are less given to mythologizing America's past than white Americans. How do you romanticize a revolution made possible by the forced labor of your ancestors, one that built white freedom on a black slavery that would persist for another century after Jefferson wrote, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal? I put it something like this a few years ago while reporting on school resegregation in Alabama. White Americans desire to be free of a past they do not want to remember, while Black Americans remain bound to a past they can never forget. This is why the memories and perspectives of Black Americans have often been marginalized and erased from the larger narrative of this nation. We are the stark reminders of some of the most damning truths. 8 in 10 Black people would not be in the United States were it not for the institution of slavery in a society founded on ideals of freedom. Our nation obscures and diminishes this history because it shames us. During the Revolution and the decades after, Black Americans, such as Sojourner Truth, John Brown Rustworm, and Ida B. Wells, used the rhetoric of freedom and universal rights espoused by white colonists and enshrined in our founding documents to reveal this nation's grave hypocrisies. There are several more paragraphs I considered reading with you today, but I'm so eager to turn to the rest of our program and our discussion. All I can do in ending is to plead with you to go out and buy the 1619 Project full-length book. It is an extraordinary read. It is packed with information. You should form book clubs. You should talk about this book over the dinner table with friends and family and children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. In doing that work, I think we can begin to turn the tide to tell a true story of American history. And certainly ICUJP is committed to that mission. Thanks everybody so much for listening.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you,
And
Steve.
Thank you for that reminder. And you've reminded me that we are the Interfaith Communities United for Justice and Peace, and your reminder of 1619 is is another call to think, for us to think about justice historically and in the present. So it's
Could I suggest just a moment? There was a wonderful interview today on Democracy Now! About Albert Woodfox, who died just a day or two ago. He was in solitary confinement for 44 years. And the idea about this, when Steve brought it up, you know, we whites don't understand what Blacks have gone through in our histories, including current history. And thank you, Steve, so much for that. But you can probably get that on Democracy Now! Today if you haven't already. Thank you.
okay. Thank you, Daryl. And I would like to call upon someone in our group to introduce Tony Brown to us. I'm sure that someone here this morning was helped to arrange his visit. Rick Bunyales.
Hi. So Tony is involved, you know, along with the other projects he's working with, on two different things that we wanted to talk about today. The Heart of Los Angeles, which is a great organization that does some wonderful work in the community, and through that, the Youth Orchestra of Los Angeles, that is getting kids to you know, I have instruments at home. They actually know how to play them. And you know, it's great to hear about this kind of cultural renaissance that's happening in the community, and the work that people are doing in this community to give opportunities and open up the arts and culture to make it easier and for kids to be able to take the time to learn all of this stuff, and help communities to be able to function better. So I'm very, very glad that Mr. Brown is here to talk to us.
Well, thank you so much. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. And wow, it's, first of all, I should just let you know there's so many good folks from sort of the Pasadena area representing some amazing causes there. And I'm actually born and raised in Sierra Madre, and did a lot of my recreational activities and my out of school time stuff in Pasadena. I went to St. Francis, had the opportunity to drive a float in the Rose Parade. So anyways, it's just a pleasure to be with you all today in this effort to create some more justice and educational equity, you know, for young people across the county of Los Angeles, for sure. So I prepared a short presentation for you just to give you an overview of the work that we get to do at Heart of LA. And then, of course, you know, have some room for plenty of questions, you know, and answers. So would it be all right if I start to share the screen? Okay, good. Let me do that now. Okay, here we go. Yay. All right, give me just a second here. That should do it. Yes, perfect. Well, good. So again, my name is Tony. I'm the CEO of Heart of LA. I've been with the organization over 20 some odd years, 2 tours of duty. You know, we started off in 1989. So we've been around for about 33 years. And, you know, for me and for many of the colleagues I get to work with, you know, we're all about trying to remove those barriers for young people, you know, and create access to opportunities that really they should have in their schools, particularly in the public school educational system. But unfortunately, as we know, so many of them do not have access to some of the programs and services that we provide. And you have to know that the kids that we serve, many of them are coming from, you know, the lowest income homes, you know, households across the county. Heart of LA has a central LA campus that is about 10 minutes west of downtown Los Angeles, in an area that's you know, used to be called the Rampart District, and it was, you know, renamed after the police scandal. But that's really where we are. It's, you know, they're considered to be the second most densely populated area in the country, unofficially. So it's teeming with lots of families. and the density is really, really, really tight. In recent years, we've now started to expand our services and programs to South Central. And we're in community schools there, part of the Black Student Achievement Plan, which are 7 schools in the Dorsey Crenshaw area for us. And we're providing a lot of arts and STEAM programming there because that's what was asked for. We're also at a nature park near Slauson and Compton, Augustus Hawkins Nature Park. And all of that fits in really well with our history. It's sort of a natural, I think, evolution of what we're trying to do, which in short is trying to create some educational equity, for young people. And when you look at Heart of Los Angeles, this gives you a smattering of the different types of programs and services that we provide. Currently, we're serving over 3,100 youth throughout LA, in South Central and predominantly in Central Los Angeles. And so we will provide visual arts. Students will have opportunities to pursue 14 different artistic disciplines. They will have the opportunity to receive academic tutoring and one-on-one intervention in their schools. They'll get English as a second language support. They'll get counseling and wellness and direct aid for families, food, eyeglasses, vaccines. They'll have access to play through PE classes weekly and also our athletic leagues. They'll have the highest quality, in our view, of music instruction in partnership with the LA Philharmonic through our YOLA and HOLA programs and also our music studios programming. And they'll get a nurturing community that will help them as they continue to grow. We start with young people as early as age 6. And we will stay with young people through their 24th year, and quite honestly, even beyond if it's needed. But our hope is that, it's kind of like raising a calf. You want to make sure that it can walk and run and do all the things it should do and realize its potential. And we stay with our young people to make sure that they break that cycle of poverty and can spring through into a career, and we'll help them through that pathway. And I think when you think about all of that, variety of services and programs that we do, starting at age 6, we're uniquely positioned, unlike perhaps a school, a public school, because we can start with someone in 1st grade and we can see them all the way through college, right? And we can stay in connection with their family, and we can keep them connected to opportunities and resources and mentors and volunteers and partners and opportunities that are, perhaps broader than what they would have had they tried to go at this alone. So that's Heart of LA in a nutshell, a lot of different programs and services for young people. And most recently, we've expanded beyond just the young people we serve. We've been offering healthy cooking classes for parents and ways to navigate and support of their children for many years. But now we've added a whole array of intergenerational music programs. So we'll talk about that later. And why do we do it, and what's the impact? Here are some stats. This gives you a feel for what we're aiming to do when a young person comes through our door. We want to make sure that they're staying at grade level, so performing at or above grade level. Oftentimes when we meet a new family in our neighborhoods, they're performing underneath grade level. More than half are performing underneath grade level. But by the time we're able to intervene within a year or two, we're able to help them get back up to grade level and surpass that most often. You're seeing that, we're changing their attitudes about school and education. And that's really important to us. We want them to have fun, we want them to have fun at school, and we want them to have fun engaging, learning, and we want to stoke that curiosity. And then our alumni, we call them alumni, but really and truly, they're still with us. We're providing scholarships. So we actually provide over $1 million in scholarships each year, the last couple of years, and we'll continue to provide scholarships for oftentimes first in their family, let alone 1st generation students going off to colleges and universities. And then this other one is just sort of giving you a feel for the variety of classes that we provide virtually and in person. Although honestly now, in this past year, most of our classes, like 99% of our classes, are back in person. So we've been full bore going at it. Behind me, you're going to see in this image behind me and also on the screen, I am sitting in front of the brand new center of our campus. So we are in a park, Lafayette Park, the main building on our campus. And for many of you who may know the neighborhood and the area, it's just a couple blocks west of MacArthur Park. And there was a lot of activity, not all of it so good, in the 90s, of course, and in early 2000s. And so we moved into this park to help provide free programs and services back in 2004 and 5. We were situated directly across the street from this park. And, you know, I saw this park that was being underutilized at the time. It was being utilized by the wrong folks. And by wrong, I just mean a lot of criminal activity was taking place. So moms and strollers and kids were afraid to go into it. And there was an old building there. And I thought, gosh, you know, no one was really utilizing it. So I asked the head of Recreation and Parks, would you be willing to allow me to use one classroom and maybe two, and provide free academic support called Smart Start for elementary age students? I want to try to, you know, build a new, strengthened, transformative community that's able to sustain itself and continue to grow. And the GM at the time said, Tony, I'll let you have it. And so from there, we sort of grew from the old building into another building across the street into now just open this new building, which I'm going to give you a quick little spin around. This building is now the center of our campus. And as you're looking at it, that has a backdoor performance pavilion by that big door that you see. And this is built from 47 recycled shipping containers. So the kids are very prideful of this new center. And there you're seeing the old park that we helped to renovate in 2011. But now back to the new one. This is really, I like to show it because as we're going to talk about music today, this is actually the building that houses our music programs, as well as many other programs. But primarily, this is the hub and the home of our visual arts programming. It's won several awards. It just opened last year fully. And as we spin around to the back of it, you're going to see this very colorful door. And it's a 35-foot wide bifold door that opens up out into the park for free community concerts and also some wonderful rehearsal space for our Youth Orchestra Los Angeles program at Heart of LA with the LA Philharmonic, our Intergenerational Orchestras, big band and choirs, and all of our music programs. So this is a building we're very proud of, and we're so grateful to have it. And for the young people that live in this community, as you're sort of spinning around the community a little bit, many of them live in apartments with, you know, no access to green space. So we built some green space and we gave them a backyard, right? So that they can have a safe place to go and to grow. So as you look at that building and know that it's the center of our campus, it has come alive. And so we're going to dip into our music programs at Heart of LA. And you see there, you know, we definitely believe that every child deserves access to high quality opportunities. And I think a lot of times what you see in schools these days that maybe they're given a little violin if they're so lucky at their elementary or middle school. But then when they transition, say from elementary to middle, no longer do they have the opportunity to continue to play violin. Or then when they transition from middle school to high school, you know, we don't have, you know, orchestra, we only have a band, or we don't have a band, we only have choir, or we only have a guitar class. So this is a nice way for community members who go to these public schools where so many kids of color go to have that through line, right, of opportunity. And so you're seeing the indoor-outdoor performance pavilion come to life with our youth orchestra musicians on the stage there, the doors fully open, and family members are on this beautiful hillside that we created and chairs below. So how did this all take off to this level and why was it needed? I think I explained probably to you why it's needed, but what I could tell you is that in 2010, I didn't really have a meaningful way to reach the large numbers of young people who really didn't have access to quality music instruction. We had music. We were offering rock band and, you know, a little mini choir, and we were doing the best we could. But it would take a system, right, to be able to create the kind of change that I think was so needed. And so that's why I partnered with the LA Philharmonic And I said, look, I know Gustavo Dudamel is arriving in Los Angeles. They came to me and said, would you have an interest in, we can see that you value the importance of music at Heart of Los Angeles. And we're looking for partners who will, because this isn't going to be it's going to be an expensive endeavor, but it's going to be one that's worth it. And if you have the teeth and the passion for it, I think together we can join hands and make it happen. So in 2010, we launched Youth Orchestra Los Angeles at Heart of LA. It was Dudamel's first year in Los Angeles. And what was nice about that timing is that he was the artistic director, and he is the artistic director of the orchestra programs. And so that allowed us to be able to attract some really wonderful up and coming music instructors and educators who really wanted the opportunity to work with Dudamel. And so I've had many a wonderful maestro and conductors who've come under his tutelage and are now conducting, ensembles around the city, as they are also conducting, obviously, Heart of LA's Youth Orchestra. So let me give you a little taste. This is from our winter concert. And this is Maestro Claudio Scar, who he's wonderful. He grew up in the community here, and now he's the maestro, right, of this youth orchestra, one of 3 that we have. He's going to give you a little something as the students play from Mars and Venus, Mars. Second, we get some sound here for us.
I'm not hearing anything. Are other people able to hear?
I'm not able to hear it either.
Yeah,
Oh, you're not able to hear?
right.
Oh.
When you go to screen share, you need to press a little button on the left side at the bottom that enables us to be able to hear. You might have to go back and read
Yeah, let me stop
screen
sharing.
share. Yeah,
Okay, so if I go here, sorry about that.
No,
no
worries.
problem. I do that all the time.
Maybe advanced sharing options. No.
On the very bottom left side, there's a little button that says that you need to press so that it'll activate the sound.
Okay, under let's see here.
It's encouraging. I'm not a techie either.
You press screen share, and then there's a little box at the bottom left side.
Oh,
and
I
that's-
see. Yes, thank you so much. Perfect.
Okay.
Great. Wonderful. All right, we're back in business.
Okay.
Yeah.
Super. Great. So I just wanted to give you a little taste. They work so hard. Young people come 4 days a week and 5 days a week to be a part of this orchestra program. We have 3 different levels of orchestra. We have usually a beginning orchestra, a middle orchestra, and then a advanced ensemble oftentimes. And it's neat. This program's been around for over 10 years now. And so it's been fun to watch full, ensembles really grow with their music. I would tell you that on the arc of expertise right now, we are probably a year away from having another really fine top ensemble. Everything sort of restarts, right? These are young people learning. And so, this group that you're listening to now, in about a year from now, they'll be playing some really high level music. They'll have the opportunity to tour around the world, oftentimes with the LA Philharmonic, and sometimes, not with them, but they'll do it on their own. And many of these young people, if they desire to go off to a conservatory, will have opportunities to do it. Whoops, did I lose you? Oh, I think someone just has their,
You're good.
there we go. So all this to say, they'll have some great opportunities that they otherwise wouldn't have had I tried to do this alone as Heart of Los Angeles. So it's in partnership that we're able to help to get these young people, off to places they would never be through
You
music.
don't need a ride, do you?
As you're seeing-
Daryl, please mute Daryl.
Not telling me to mute. I'm sorry.
Thanks. So what's nice about the Youth Orchestra program is that it's now expanded. So now we have over 300 young people doing either the orchestras or our big bands and rock bands and world music. And so that's been a lot of fun to see all of these different styles of music and opportunities being offered to young people, so we can meet them where they're at musically and help to take them where they want to go. And it's very often that we'll have students who are playing in the big band, stand-up bass, and then I'm not surprised to see them playing with the orchestra program musicians too. So that's a lot of fun to see that crossover. Another thing you should know is that Heart of LA draws youth from the community who, in this case, on the Central LA campus, are coming from over 75 schools. Okay, so it's that dense, there's that many schools. And this is just a really neat opportunity for them after school, this many days a week, to get to know peers across the city. And I think it's a nice stepping stone, should many of them desire to want to go to college or university. They don't have to be quite as scared about the process because they've had experience, intermixing, which is great. So all of this sort of gave way to creating, this center as a center for music. And so a year ago, we launched the Intergenerational Orchestra. And there it was critically important that many of the seniors who also live in the community, and many, honestly, seniors who live across LA County, I think we know oftentimes many of them maybe don't feel as connected to, family who may not live near them. I mean, they're lonely. And there's no reason for that. And what we also know intergenerationally is that there were many of our elders in the group who were lucky to benefit from much stronger music programs in Los Angeles and across Los Angeles, right? Music was offered we've learned in a much more substantial way in our public school systems than now. And so there are these trained musicians who haven't maybe played in 10 or 15 years or 20 years. And this gives them an opportunity to come back and play with younger musicians and play together. And so this intergenerational orchestra program, for example, has over 150 members, which is just incredible to see that really nice array of ages playing together. Many of the kids who've played in our youth orchestra will come and play. The intergenerational orchestra is not as high touch each week, so it allows actually students who, for whatever reason, couldn't commit to a 4 or 5 day a week schedule in orchestra to still play the orchestral instrument 1 or 2 days. We are now then this year adding a choir, of which we have over 34 members so far, and a big band, which has over 30 on the intergenerational side. And both of those programs are positioned to grow. So we'd love to invite more individuals who'd like to sing intergenerationally or play big band intergenerationally to join that aspect of our music programs. And so now I'll just play for you a quick little 1 minute short to give you an understanding of the kind of environment that we're creating in our intergenerational orchestra and intergenerational music programs.
There's a unique power in music that can bring people together. They don't have to speak the same language. They don't have to be the same age. They only have to come together to share their gifts through music and to learn and to grow. Well, Heart of LA is an amazing community center, and we're providing rigorous fundamentals in language arts, math, access to music for kids who otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity. All of it free for families so that no longer is poverty the obstacle to realizing their dreams. All generations of students being part of something very special together. I can come here for programs, classes, activities, and now an intergenerational orchestra.
Great. So that, I wonder if I can flip over to the next slide. Give me just a second and try to reduce that. There we go. Good. So that really, concludes my slideshow portion. What we're asking support with today is really just to help us spread the word that we have, music programs and opportunities available to young people, as we also have them for intergenerationally. And the easiest way to refer people is to send them to heartofla.org/music. And they can see all of the different opportunities that are available through music right now. Young people who've had some music experience, intermediate or advanced level, are absolutely welcome to join our youth orchestra programs. New beginners, I believe we are full this year, this school year, but there'll be openings again. And every year we create those openings. And on the intergenerational side, nearly every program can continue to grow. So all are welcome there. And they rehearse 1 day a week. So orchestras on Monday, 7 to 9, choirs on Wednesday, 7:30 to 9:30, and big band is on Thursdays, 7 to 9. So there are lots of opportunities that way to join. And then outside of that, beyond that, we have other programs and classes that have openings, particularly for folks in South Central. We have some wonderful STEAM and visual arts programming that's new there and accessible to families. And we also have, our programs and services at Heart of LA, particularly in athletics, even available in our Central LA campus. So lots of opportunities for the community to take advantage. We don't want there to be gaps. We know that there are gaps, but we want to fill them. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to share a little bit of Heart of LA with you today.
Thank you very much, Tony. It's so encouraging to see the work that you're doing and the progress that you've made up until the present moment. I see 2 raised hands, and one of them is mine. And my question is about literacy. I believe you briefly mentioned language as one of the programs in addition to your music program. But do you have a literacy program, and are there opportunities for people like the members of ICUJP to participate in a literacy program through reading or any other means?
Yes, so there's a couple of opportunities that way. We developed a program called Smart Start, and we also have another program called Bridges. And they were really designed to give young people the fundamentals in language arts and math, for example, but it's extended beyond that, right, to STEAM and visual arts and music and PE. Having said that, when a young person comes to Heart of LA after school into those programs, they start off with a homework hour, but then let's say on a Monday, they actually might have a language. Some of the kids might have a reading wizards class. Some might have a math blasters class. Some might have ceramics. Some might have, PE. But every day there's a different group that's having some sort of language arts or math, the fundamentals. And so we invite volunteers into those classrooms to help work more small group or one-on-one even with students, again, in this joint effort, if you will, to help bring those young people up to grade level. So yes, there are volunteer opportunities. in that way. And all one would need to do is go to our website, heartofla.org/volunteer, and just indicate in the notes that that's what you'd love to help with. Are there opportunities? And we can create those opportunities for you in one of those programs. So you'd be working with elementary or middle school students. I would also not forget about our high school and college success folks. We take mentors there every quarter. Every fall. And that's an important volunteer opportunity that is not only transformative for the young people, but it is oftentimes really transformative for the mentors. And what we do is we guide the mentor and the mentee through this is how you apply to college, this is how you apply for financial aid, and this is how you apply for scholarships. And you walk those steps together with your mentee. And some wonderful bonds that are created through that experience as well.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned two programs, and I remember the name of one of them. Would you tell us again the program that you mentioned along with Smart Start?
Yes, Bridges.
Bridges.
And so Bridges would be for middle school age students through freshmen, sophomores, through sophomore year in high school. And they follow a very similar structure of academic intervention and support. That includes the opportunities to help them reinforce language and reading and some of the core subject areas so they stay on track.
Okay, thank you. And next on my list of raised hands, I see Anthony.
Well, Tony, I just want to say that this was one of the most inspiring, uplifting presentations I have ever heard. Especially here at ICUJP, because we deal with a lot of hard issues. So thank you so much for bringing this amazing program to our attention. We have a member of our group, Susan Stauffer, who has a program for youth, a peace camp. And I'm sure she'll be really interested in what you do if she doesn't already know about it. My question is, and I mentioned his name earlier, is Charles Dickerson and the Intercity Youth Orchestra. Do you know him?
I do. He's a wonderful, I know, also partner and a part of the LA Philharmonic family, if you will. Yeah, absolutely. He's terrific.
Yeah.
And I love what he's doing there in South Central.
Yeah, I'm going to share a link with all of you about that because a few years ago, my wife passed away about 12 years ago, and she had a silver flute. It was quite expensive, and we didn't want to sell it. That seemed like a profane use for something so sacred to us. So we donated it to the Intercity Youth Orchestra, so some young person of color would get a chance to use my wife's silver flute. But I just want to say that I totally appreciate what you're doing with this, because it's so important, so incredibly important. So thank you, Tony. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Oh, Anthony, thank you. Thank you. And I we need more programs like this one and like Intercity Youth Orchestra for sure, across our counties. Every young person deserves these opportunities.
Absolutely.
They choose this one, but they might choose visual arts, but there needs to be these opportunities for young people again.
Thank you, Anthony. I see Daryl with the hand raised. Do you know how to, we have 4 people ahead of you, Daryl. Do you know how to raise your hand on the, in the participants section? If you do, please raise your hand there down on the bottom line where it says reactions. And the next person on the list that I'm looking at is Steve Rohde. Question or comment?
Yes, thank you. But as an educational opportunity, Daryl, and for everybody, along the bottom of your Zoom screen in the black border where you see participants, chat, record, live transcript, then it says reactions.
Yeah.
And if you click on reactions, you get many choices, one of which is to raise your hand. And then there are others to give reactions to what speakers are doing.
Amen.
So it's a very helpful way by clicking on raise hand for the moderator to know that you're trying to, and he's there, Daryl. See, you can teach an old dog new tricks.
I'm an old dog, all right. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tony, just a wonderful presentation. I have a two-part question. I'm eager to know where your funding comes from. Is there government funding? Are there grants and institutional funding and individual funding? And then I have a follow-up question.
Sure. So Heart of LA, when we started in 1989, it was so much about individuals and also foundations, at the time. And there were far fewer nonprofit organizations, around in that time frame. So Heart of LA, really, we were not doing government grants for the longest time. And I would say that most of our funding still comes from institutional foundations and a growing number, thankfully, individual. And we have had some government contracts and awards more in the last 3 or 4 years. The award side, we've won a number of National Endowment for the Art Awards, which we're grateful for our music programs. And then we have most recently received a National Endowment for the Humanities award for our visual arts program. So both of those have been great to have. There's a great deal more flexibility when you can receive those awards as opposed to a government contract, say, for after school support, right? And so, oftentimes what you'll see with Heart of LA, and I do a lot of work with not only Heart of LA, but a lot of nonprofits across the state doing after school work. And what I notice is when you're in a government contract, that money right now is a little bit worse. The contracts aren't good. The school district contracts aren't great. The state contracts aren't the best. And varying, districts have slightly better contracts, but most of those young people are being served with like $2,000 or less per year in after school time programming. At Heart of LA, we've, the balance is primarily private funding and foundation funding. So our kids are very fortunate to be able to receive closer to $3,000 per young person, and quite honestly, neither are enough. Really what you want to be, and when I look at the Wallace Foundation did a report, or a national foundation, they did a report on what should after school program investment look like in metro areas. It should be like $5,000 to $9,000 per youth per year. So, our government, contracted folks doing after school time work are getting it under 2,000. They're way away from where they need to be for quality. And Heart of LA isn't far behind them, but we're a little bit better. So that's our funding mix.
Thank you.
Sure.
As a matter of policy, ICUJP is suspicious of government funding
Yeah.
With the requirements, and also it can be changeable, and different governments change, and then you depend on that, and then you don't get it. My substantive question is that ICUJP has for years explored the teaching of peace studies and the teaching of the civil rights movement and the movements in American history for greater freedom, greater individual liberties and rights, the struggle of minorities and other groups to establish their place in American society. And I hasten to mention that in connection with my reflection today.
Yes.
We have developed, and I'm so glad Anthony mentioned Susan Stauffer, who has done Peace Camp and helped us develop some curriculum and other work on peace studies and civil rights. I looked on your website while you've been presenting. You have a wing of academics, of exceptional academic support, enrichment programs from elementary through high school into college. just to plant a seed today, and we can follow up on this separately, could you imagine ways in which peace studies and teaching regarding the history of the civil rights movement, the labor movement, the women's movement, LGBT expansion could be woven into your academic enrichment?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we do, we weave it in now. Yeah, oftentimes in Bridges for many years, they've had a class period held called Facing History and Ourselves, right? And it was a lot about the identity and the origins. We want people to feel good. Oftentimes when you're dealing with many immigrant populations, which we do at our Central LA campus, they oftentimes the young people want to divorce their heritage because they want to try to fit into this one. Or the ideal, what's pumped into this one, right? And what we're trying to do is reconnect them to their culture and their identity and let them know that there's strength there and there's extraordinary value in spite of the way they might be feeling about the value of their history. And so we have a class, and we've had it for, gosh, probably over a decade, that we call Facing History and Ourselves. It allows opportunities like the ones you've presented to enter into that class period, if you will. We also have a partnership at the high school level that it's called Just Keep Living, JK Living. And in that, we are oftentimes introducing, various themes around peace and identity. And then we also have a leadership council, which is offered for the high school level too. At the elementary level, there are many classes and opportunities that we use to teach around those issues, and they come in various names and forms. So to answer your question in short, yes, we're open to it. We have a history of doing it, and we don't do anything in Heart of LA anymore alone. So it's always about partnering to do things and do them better.
Okay, thank you, Steve, and thank everyone for lowering hands after asking questions. The next person on my list, and someone please tell me if I'm taking people out of order. I'm just taking people as they appear on the participants list. On the right hand side of my screen, and the next person I see there is Doc Ruby.
And I am just so excited because Tony, I remember when this was just a thought and a vision, and it's just seeing this come to reality. Being at that park and then looking at that building and then watching it grow, and from where you were then and to where you are, it shows that any thought that we make can become real.
Yes.
With patience, with perseverance, with love, with support, with dedication, and you have it all. I don't know if you remember me when, though.
Oh, Dr. Ruby, that's so funny. When I saw your name with the first one, I said, I've met you before. And I do remember, it was a long time ago.
A long time ago, time ago.
Yeah.
And just to see, my interest has always been peace and supporting others in their visions, becoming real. And I mean, just to see, to be in that park and then looking at that building and then working and stuff and everything. And then now you're on these programs and this what's the intergenerational program, and not just music, but all of the different things. I'm sending you love still, okay?
I appreciate that very much.
Here at ICU JP, but I'm still sending you love with the children and everything. Thank you. Thank you too for your continued dedication. Yes.
Blessing. Thank you.
Yes. Board members, everybody, this shows you what you think can become real with love and dedication and peace and powerful thoughts. Yes.
Thank you, Doc Ruby. The next hand I see is that of Carol Francis.
Yeah, I mean, great. This is really great, Tony. As somebody who taught for 3 decades in Compton and Watts, we watched our music program get unfunded bit by bit, year after year. We'd have less and less, and it was just like anybody who knows anything about student performance knows that if kids have art and music in their lives, their academics improve.
That's right.
Not that that should be the only reason to keep arts and music, because your life improves. Anyway, you mentioned very briefly a world music, which I'm just fascinated, because here in the heart of this city that is so world, so diverse, do you actually have people who play different, like, I love the oud, I mean, tell us about your world music group.
Sure. So, we're about to get back to doing it on the youth side of our music programs, because they had a period. So this is what's been interesting. I mentioned to you, I've been here for 20 plus years, and so I see different groups come in and ensembles, right? And they have a craving for it, and part of it, like, oftentimes will adapt around their interest, to go there. And so right now we don't have the world music youth because they're in college, which I'm grateful that they are. But we were bringing in some really interesting instruments that I had not seen before, and kids were passionately learning to play them, and share them with other young people. We have so many Central American communities that there's just variations on instrumentation and musical styles and forms. Right now, what we're seeing are young people who have branched. How would I say it? They still participate in the youth orchestra, but they've also created their own. The Oaxacan community is known for their philharmonics, right? So we actually have one that's run by the students. And there are 30 plus students involved, and they're sharing the Oaxacan music tradition. That's this current iteration of world music right now at Heart of LA. But I've seen it take many forms, again, based around the interest of the groups of students that sort of cluster around what they're most interested in pursuing. And then at the intergenerational side, for sure, we are, wanting to partner with other instruments and other forms of music, particularly from our Bangladeshi community that is adjacent to the Vermont, Wilshire area. So that'll be hopefully this year that we get to start to do that.
That's great. Thank you.
Sure. And oftentimes, when we want out of thing, we'll hire an ethnomusicologist oftentimes to make sure that we are, selecting pieces that, folks maybe have not heard unless they were originating from those areas in which they, are more traditional. So we're trying to bring that into our music across all music programs every year. And then in the Intergenerational Orchestra, we have a conductor who speaks 4 languages, Italian, Korean, Spanish, maybe 3 languages, or 4. Italian, Spanish, Korean, and English. And so he's been fantastic in making folks from who only speak Korean or who only speak Spanish welcomed into the Intergenerational Orchestra and able to play and perform together with us.
Thank you. The next hand I see raised, and the only hand I see raised at the moment, is Daryl Myers.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. As one who grew up in South Central LA from 2nd grade through college near the Coliseum area, near college, and by the way, Pepperdine was on 79th in Vermont in those days.
Oh, wow.
And being in the bands and orchestras and so forth, I really appreciate your work, and this has really been heartwarming. I wonder, do you ever have anything for those of us who don't get around as much as we'd like to, that's like on Saturday mornings that one can come and view as spectators?
Oh, for sure. Okay, so first of all, there's a mailing list that we need to sort of make sure you're on and the world is on to know that we'll provide free community concerts on that beautiful hillside there. If that's something that's fun for folks to enjoy, we would love to have you. All of our concerts are free and open to the community across all of our music programs. We oftentimes will do those on a Saturday. They're typically not in the morning, though some are. Some are. Like, for example, when Dudamel comes to rehearse the Youth Orchestra, for example, that oftentimes is on a Saturday morning. So we
Or
could absolutely,
afternoon, yeah, that's fine, yeah.
yeah, but most certainly. And, of course, you're always welcomed as a musician to join any of our intergenerational programs. You'd be more than welcome. We're not currently rehearsing on Saturday mornings, but if you can ever come on a weekday, we have convenient parking and we'll get you in and out and enjoying yourself through that.
Thank you.
Sure.
At the moment, I don't see any other hands raised. So I want
Stephen Fisk.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, Stephen.
No
Take it
problem.
away.
I just raised it. Thank you, Tony, for your presentation. I have a couple of questions. One, how did you do during the COVID time when there was so much isolation and where music is so difficult to communicate across Zoom land? You know, it just doesn't come across well, especially if you want to encourage people to sing along or participate. There are delays and echoes and all kinds of problems with that. And secondly, I am a longtime professional singer, songwriter, guitarist guy, deriving my origins from a home where classical music was played, but I went towards rock and roll and,
Nice.
and folk music of the 1960s, taught myself to play the guitar. And I've been blessed to have had some of my songs recorded by well-known artists and to have a career of music that has been of tremendous inspiration to me, and to share music with audiences here in America and overseas. Do you have guest artists who come to your school and present their life efforts in the arts and in music? And I also feel kind of sad that I'm in the process of moving away from California. So, remotely, and I will be back visiting because I have so many contacts here and so much work here. Anyway, those are my questions. And thank you for your amazing commitment and dedication to what you're doing in the arts. It's great.
Thank you so much. I'm grateful to have this opportunity. And, I wake up in the morning and I feel like my life has incredible purpose, and it's great to be among you who do the same good work for others. So it's humbly grateful. But I guess to answer your question, during COVID, at the start of the pandemic, yes, we transitioned everyone to online. It took us about 3 weeks. We liquidated every laptop we owned at the center. We liquidated, even desktops. Parents and families would come and they could pick those up. I basically turned my music teachers for a period of time, as an example, into, we called them wellness check-in calls. So while they might have had normally 3 hours on campus with us, right, in a non-COVID experience, they now would do 2 hours of phone calls to each and every one of their students to make sure that each week, how are you doing? How's it going? What do you need? Or do you have internet? No, you don't have internet. Okay, I'll tell you what, tomorrow I'm going to call you again during this time, and we're going to get you logged on to free internet services through Spectrum or AT&T, and we're going to get you connected. So by about 3 weeks after the pandemic began in early March, We had nearly all of our kids back online and in classrooms, virtual classrooms. To your point, yes, it's more challenging, right, to do music that way. And the El Sistema, which is, what inspires, our music program, really relies upon being together in group on ensemble. And so we had to transition into more private lessons and more small group lessons because of the delays. But it actually had an interesting benefit, right? Those private lessons, kids were working hard in those private lessons, so they worked. They actually advanced musically in a nice way, and we were able to keep it going. The other thing that happened during that time is it really gave a tremendous boost to production management skill development. And so kids were taught, and we actually birthed our production management programming, if you will, because of the pandemic. We taught kids how to record, themselves and how to edit to a certain extent, and how to put it together and mix it together. So we have some wonderful content. If you go onto our website, oftentimes in the upper right corner, there's the YouTube link and a bunch of little links that take you to different places. But if you go to our YouTube link, you might come across some of the virtual music that was created during those times by our music students. And the other nice thing was this new pavilion, this new center opened up. Part of it was good, part of it was bad. The bad part was we didn't get to have a huge grand opening because the pandemic started about a month before we were planning to do that. But the benefit was it is an indoor-outdoor space. And so there are these beautiful hallways that have fresh air coming in on all sides, while having having coverage overhead, and they're 12-foot wide. So we were actually running a lot of our classes in the hallways, as we were also doing a lot of our horn instruments outside in this beautiful park and these nooks that we created. So we were able to bring kids back pretty quick as a result of that, So it was great to be able to stay connected to our students through those ways musically. But it's still, the final result is it's way better to be back in person. But it wasn't impossible to stay connected, during COVID by teaching them how to use the technology that's available, and by doubling down on some privates. And then the last part of your question, are there opportunities for artists to come and engage? Absolutely. So we've had artists, songwriters who, commission pieces that we would then play across our intergenerational music programs and our youth programs. We've also had guest artists appear during COVID. They would appear virtually, even after COVID. That's something that we can still continue. But most often we welcome them in to guest conduct, to again, share their life story, particularly in visual arts. We've been doing it for well over a decade, of bringing in lots and lots of artists to engage the young people in their, sort of what took them from where they are, as a young person to where they are now. And our young people have oftentimes been fascinated, and we usually marry that with some sort of, play along together, or visual arts project if it's in the visual arts side, so that kids can cement in that sharing and reflect back what they've learned from that process. So we love guest artists, and we do have those programs available. Yeah, and we love to have someone who has had experience, and experiences as you have had. That would be amazing. And that's a volunteer, easy, heartofla.org/volunteer. I'd be interested in being a guest artist.
I have a quick question for Rick Banales, and that has to do with how Tony could make contact with members of ICUJP and everyone who is on the forum this morning. Is there anything we can do as a group to get onto Heart of LA's mailing list?
Yes, please, please do. So I will, you can literally email info@heartofla.org and just ask to be connected to our mailing list so that you are informed. And what's nice is most often you can write in there that these are interests that you have. And we will put you on those types of mailing lists. You know, I'm really interested in music, right? So we'll make sure you're on the music mailing list. I really love visual arts, you know, events and opportunities, and we can put you on those. You know, we have so many programs. They have their, you know, they have their segments of people who are very passionate about those programs. And so we can absolutely do that. You can also easily go to our website, heartofla.org/ and then just go to connect. There's a connect tab at the top and just go to contact us. And you can literally put your information in that way. That's an automated way, probably even easier than an email. And you'll be placed onto those mailing lists, and someone will reach back to you and learn a little bit more about you is our goal there. But I'd say our website, heartofla.org, and then go to connect and you can do a contact us.
And I put all of that in the chat. So
thank you.
It's a cut and paste for folks.
Terrific.
Okay, thank you, Rick. I hope that everyone knows how to go to the chat section. If you don't, it's info at all one word, heartofla, one word, .org. And you can also add a /connect. And I see that Steve Rohde has a hand raised.
Tony, we have about 10 minutes left for our program. And unless there are any questions, I'm wondering if in short order you can share other musical selections with us. We could enjoy longer passages of any music. You mentioned a choir, a jazz band, maybe in the next 9 minutes or so, if you've got a few selections for us.
Okay.
Or Tony, excuse me for butting in. Maybe since we missed several minutes of the first piece of music that you played, maybe just a thought, just to consider possibly replaying that from the very beginning so we can get the full experience of that piece of music.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. I mean, there's a couple of places there's a couple of wonderful things I could share with you, but if that's the one you'd love, I'd love to share that with you. So sure, give me just a moment and we can go back to that one. I also have a wonderful, we did a wonderful concert in the park with our intergenerational music program too, and I'd be happy to share that with you also, if that would
that'd be great.
All right.
Yeah, I'd love to hear something a little more different.
Yeah, a little different, right? Okay, why don't we start there? So give me just a second. Let me pull it up.
While you're doing that, maybe one thing I can stress too is that the work that you guys are doing with the STEAM curriculum and there is a great opportunity for those of us who have a background in those disciplines that maybe we can share as well.
Yes, that would be great. That would be great. And sorry. That would be great. We have we have needs there, particularly in South Central. There's at Augustus Hawkins Nature Park. We're certainly trying to, engage the community in that beautiful park there, that neighborhood and community. And so STEAM is offered for us on Friday. We offer it on Fridays. There are also opportunities, I think, to create some fun programming on Saturdays too, together with folks who have an interest there. And then, of course, on our main campus in Central LA, we have opportunities ongoing. So yes, I'd love to engage you that way. Okay. And again, you can, just express that, when you connect us. And my chief program officer and that team will reach right back to you and start. Okay. Well, good. All right. So let me start us off with some music. Does that sound like a good plan? All right. Let's share screen. There we go. Okay. So let's go right here. All right. Sorry, I went too fast. Okay. He's going to tune the orchestra here. that okay?
Oh, yeah.
And I could maybe share one with some singing. We did Shakespeare in the Park, just to give you a taste. Brought some artists, some wonderful artists, some folks who.
Tony?
Yes.
While you're playing the music, remember that you are not muted.
Oh, okay.
So when you speak, we can hear you.
Got it. Okay, great. Okay, very good. I will. I'll refrain so you can enjoy. All right. Let me see. That was Shakespeare in the Park, but let's head over to. There's some singing that happens here, and I want to take you there. Okay.
Thank you, Tony. I see that we have about 3.5 minutes to wrap up our meeting. Do you have any final thoughts you want to share with us before we pick up the rest of the forum's business?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your time today and giving me this opportunity to come in front of you. And I would just say, you know, listen, I think in this moment in time, there's absolutely hope. I get the hope. I get that feeling of great hope when I see the young people and I see, you know, them continue to take great steps when we make these types of investments in their lives. I feel like there's a way out of some of the peril that we're all witnessing and you know, feeling around the world because our young people want to do something about it. And, you know, if you give them the opportunities to try to take action, they will. And if you invest in them, I think we end up having to spend far less later, right? On climate, far less later on housing security issues, and you name it. The list go, you know, on and on. Because our kids have lived through it. They've found ways to persist. And they see and have great ideas about how we can solve for some of these things. So anyways, I'm grateful. It's not going to happen with one person or agency. It's going to happen when we create this beautiful village together. So thanks for trying to do that today and bringing me in. And we would love to have you be a part of this village of support.